What's the best advice you've received about the music industry?
That's a good question.
Thanks.
I think there are certain things that I've like picked up over the years that have become like reinforced.
I'm
Hi, Stella.
obsessed. Jen is joining the video.
She's like, I want the advice too. I think there's certain things I've like lived through that have been reinforced more through just like my own personal experience. I can't like pinpoint it to like specific things. I know John Clayton, when I did the Veil workshop, said a lot of like isms, like kind of one-liners. I was like, oh my god, that's so good.
Yeah.
I'd write it down, and I mean, one of the things he said that I think was huge at that point in my life was, if you have a fallback plan, you will fall back. Which was funny because I was going to like non-conservatory, even though I like wanted to play music. So I was like, okay, am I doing a fallback plan by like going to a liberal arts school? And it was like, no, like this, I'm rounding out, you know, my life, I guess, and I'm still loosely pursuing this professional track, but doing it in a different way on purpose.
I wanted to say something about that because when you were talking about it, what I heard is that you were able to put yourself in a space that included life and context to the music. And I went to we didn't. I don't think that's considered a conservatory.
No.
Sorry.
You guys went to a rigorous performance program.
It was immersive, and there can be amazing things about that, but there's no reason you can't have immersive experiences at a place that isn't a conservatory.
Right.
And I think it gives you that extra piece that is so important after you leave the place.
Yeah, like I had to learn how to tap into certain resources that, you know, they might not have been available to me if I went to a conservatory and everyone was going after the resources. But because I was a big fish in a small pond, like there weren't other like aspiring jazz musicians who were like applying to certain departments for summer funding to go to Paris and study the history of what X, Y, and Z, you know? And so it allowed me to, I guess, have less competition for some of these things. But
was
also,
it lonely?
No, I mean, it gave me, I had to think more creatively about like what I wanted to do with my time and like what information I wanted to access. And I think my composition developed in a way that it wouldn't have if I was in a performance program.
Interesting.
Because I was able to spend more time focusing on composition, not just in like a jazz context, but like a larger modern music, contemporary classical thing. And I still feel like, you know, I'm like a baby in the contemporary classical world, but like I've been able to do some chamber music that I don't think I would have, you know, had access to as far as like, you know, wanting to write that kind of music. And now part of my challenge is figuring out how I can make space for that in what is otherwise a very like jazz oriented career.
Totally.
But a lot of the great musicians of our time are not just stuck doing one thing, and so I think going to like Princeton allowed me to focus more on some of those things, and then obviously to focus on the history component, which gave my playing more of a framework. So I still maintain that it was the best thing for my career.
Yeah, and not
to not go to conservatory, but you have to explain yourself a little bit more when somebody's like, how, you know, puzzle me that one, right?
Yeah.
So that was definitely something that John Clayton said to me that was important. But I think something I always tell myself when I go out, because I don't always go out all the time, but honestly, when I go out, more often than not, something good happens to me. And I know that's a bit of a privilege to be able to say that, because I think everyone has a spectrum of experiences when they go out based on what instrument they play, their age, you know, their gender, their race. Like, I think I'm lucky that certain things are easier, I guess, for me in that regard. But, you know, I've learned how to, you know, occupy the spaces in the scene on my own terms. I've learned how to talk to people a certain way, and you know, I was always like a chipper kid, and like I think I've mellowed out a little bit, but I'm still kind of the chipper kid still.
I love that.
Underneath. And so, you know, learning where you can be comfortable being yourself, and that can be weird on the scene, because I think everyone's kind of a mess in their own way, but it's everyone's trying, you know, and like everyone's trying to be in this together, and it's been really easy for me to find my people who are not already my people. Because like you can kind of weed out the people that you connect with from the people that you don't. And rather than trying to get every single possible gig on the scene, I'm really, you know, the list of people I'm trying to play with has shrunk a lot since I moved here.
Nice.
And I think just like, nothing can happen if you don't go out. And I think there's a lot of people now in our generation that like don't like jam sessions or are less comfortable in like super public spaces. And I think everyone has to find their own way. But it is a social music. It's a music that's built on community. And so if you're not doing those things, then you have to find other avenues to still connect with people socially, to build those relationships, to build your network. So sometimes I like am in a slump, I guess, where I'm like, I really don't want to go out. I don't want to have to deal with like all the circus of a jam session at Smalls or whatever.
Yeah.
But the reality is like it's never really that bad. And rather than shying away from those experiences, it's like it's allowed me to think more about like, okay, how can I make this situation better for myself and for other people? If I'm at a jam session, how can I help people with etiquette? How can I like musically uplift a situation? How can I connect with somebody who might seem out of their boots and is scared and like is looking for a friend? I think we sometimes like simplify the jam session experience into this like everyone's just out to kill each other. It's like not everyone. Some people are actually looking for friends, and a big thing for me is teaching other horn players how to not step on vocalists' toes. Whoa. And it's like it's so simple to me in principle, but people struggle with that because everyone's just trying to show everyone else that they're really good and that they're worth listening to. Yeah. And sometimes it's so the advice that I would give based on like what my experience has been is the more that you can make it not about you, the more people will then later make it about you. So like if I show up to a jam session and I bring a little edge of like, I think I'm good and I know I can hang, and like I bring a little bit of that, but if I can show up at a jam session instead of trying to sound like the best saxophone player, if I can think about what can I do to really serve the music, like really, really serve the music, and how can I make this a better experience for other people, because then it'll probably make it a better experience for myself, and I'll probably get more out of the situation than if I show up and just try to blaze the floor with great stuff. And so it's like, how can you leave the audience wanting more? That's like a old Barry Harris saying that's like really important. I think sometimes we overplay and scare people away, and or we just, oh yeah, you sound great, but I don't want to play with you, like that kind of thing. And so it's like, how can I be the most musical person in every situation, no matter who I'm playing with? Yeah. And that's what I think is valuable about going to jam sessions, because I like the people I play with in my band. And I pick them for very specific reasons, both musically and personally and socially. But there is great value in being able to show up anywhere. I think, this is part of Bird's like lore is like he could play any horn and sound like himself, no matter what sorry rhythm section he was playing with, no matter how high he was always able to serve music, and that was like his thing. He was such a messenger in that way, and. I mean, I don't think I can ever be Charlie Parker, but I think a lot of us can live more productive musical lives if we think more about service and less about like proving your thing. Because if I'm really great, people they'll get it. Yes. You don't have to spoon feed people with your greatness.
No, and if you don't prove, that's less prove your greatness.
And it's like, do I want to be remembered for being a great alto soloist? Like that'd be a nice part of my thing, but I think I'd rather be remembered for, connecting people, for, facilitating a healthier musical environment. Because if we're having this, like, unhealthy jam session, how is the audience supposed to connect with the music? And then we're having these larger questions about how the music isn't popular anymore. And it's like, I think we're past the point of, like, whether jazz will, like, be popular again. But it can at least be more enjoyable for people if some of those like processes are healthier.
Totally.
And if we're really trying to get more people to be included in the process of making this great music together, we have to think more about that kind of stuff, and less about like how great you sound, because that's really only a drop in the bucket. And that's, if you really sound great, it'll always come through. Yeah. But I'd rather not have that at the expense of being known as a good dude who's helpful. Right.
Yeah, because the only space that would actually matter is, like, literally in a vacuum. You know what I mean? Like, no one cares.
Well, and this is a big thing. It's a big thing in the current jazz scene, I think, with, like, some people have, like, a certain gig at a certain venue, and that becomes their, like, territory that they hold on to, and it's like...
Like, in an identity way?
Yeah, like, that venue might like go under in like 6 months, and then what are you? You know,
Totally,
so like,
yeah.
or the person you're playing with might die. You know,
Oh,
if they're
God.
God forbid. You know, but like I'm saying,
Well,
like
grounding yourself.
it's like
Yeah.
not isn't you know it's is it only about the gigs you have and the people you play with, or is there something that's more
Are you serving?
sustainable,
Yeah.
or you know, like has a longer shelf life than like,
Yeah.
oh well, I'm really good because I play with this person. It's like, or you're just really good because you're really good,
Yeah.
Mm.
and that's how you got the gig in the first place.
Right.
You know, so I think getting people away from this like weird, yeah, like you said, there's this like vacuum thing of like nobody knows the value of having that gig.
Yeah.
You know, like, oh, it's great that you play at this place with that person. Like 20 people know that.
Right.
You know,
Exactly.
like
Yeah.
what is, and it's you're probably not making a great amount of money doing it, right? So I think if people were a little less like angsty about all that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
and it was a little bit more helpful, like, oh, like, you know, this is a person that is taking care of the music, that just needs more opportunities. Like, I want to be part of uplifting that person.
Yeah.
Mm.
Or they're really sad and they need to really work on it. Either I'm gonna be the one to tell them, or I'm gonna point them to some recordings that can, you know, and that's just something that I think is tricky. Of like, how do you support people when they aren't serving music?
Yeah.
Mm.
Like, how do you try to fix them a little bit, correct their course? Because you don't want to just let it. If they're bad, you don't want to just let it
Yeah.
be bad. You know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's like one of my creeds that I've started to really live by and really try to impart on other people is like, if you can get out of your own way with the whole like, I need to show people how great I am, and focus more on like base your greatness and how you serve other people. I think that
Yeah.
will always, it'll naturally serve you really well.
As a person too, I think that's why I'm like, this year I'm realizing it's so much more about examining yourself after you have maybe like some base level like technique, like you can play, let's say.
Yeah.
Then it's like really examining self in order to understand all of it, like the insecurity, the gross stuff, the amazing stuff, like what makes you yourself in interaction with others.
Right.
Yeah.
Because it really is a connected
Yeah.
music. Anyways.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a social music first, and right now we have a lot of people that I think Trane was influential in this way, and I think people have taken his message a little bit the wrong way, where like, because he was such an introspective player, they thought that everything was about just developing your inner stuff.
Yeah.
But Trane was a servant to
But-
other people.
Well, and also
Like Trane's
he's-
music, he knew the power of his music in terms of it reaching other people, and
Yeah.
so yeah, you need to like develop all the internal stuff, but this is like the reason to perform is to connect, to share it with other people, to connect with other
Yeah.
people. So like, no matter how great your thing is, if you have 3 people at your show, it ain't that great, you know. Or you just
Yeah.
need to meet more people, you know. But like,
Yeah.
people get so stuck on the like, well, I'm a pure artist, and it's like, that's cool, but if you're actually participating in this art form, it's based in serving people. It's based in, that's the cultural backbone of it. And so if you're just dealing with it on an artistic level, that's fine, but you're not really dealing with it on a cultural level. And
Totally.
I think that's where like, you can't be mad about people not coming to your show if you're not operating from a cultural framework. If you're
Yeah.
only operating from an artistic framework, it's just going to be harder.
Well, and the other part of that though is I'm noticing I never knew Trane, so I don't want to like hurt it, but I would hope that there was like introspection in a musical way that was paired with introspection in a self way, and I think, I don't know, but sometimes I feel like people miss the part about the self, and it's all about I gotta sound good, I gotta do
Right.
and
Yeah.
there's like this forgetting about why are we doing this? What's
Yeah,
the
I got to
point?
sound good so I can get into that program so that I can then get a sustainable
Yeah.
gig and
It
this.
becomes
and
so
it becomes this like
selfish.
interesting domino effect,
Yeah.
and it's like, well, if you were to take away the whole like career development aspect of it, like, do you
Accolades.
actually like the work you're doing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
It's like, that's a big one.
That's a huge
You know,
question.
do you actually like the work you're doing?
Yeah.
And are you actually existing in the way that you feel like is a good reflection of who you are?
Yeah.
Because a lot of people, I feel like nowadays, like, you know, I don't think naming names is productive, but I do think there are people that their jazz business chops are so good that it doesn't really matter what their playing is. And I think a lot of people our age now are looking up to some of those people and thinking like, well, as long as I can do that, I'm cool. It's like, is the purpose to really be like financially secure in playing this music? Because that's like, for me, it's like a necessary condition. Like I'm not planning on living a poor life.
Yeah.
You know, but am I gonna do it with like? Is it gonna be? Is that what's gonna come first, or is it gonna be driven through some sort of deep connection to the art and to the purpose of the art?
Yes.
That like I'd rather make $50,000 doing my thing than making $80,000 being really disconnected from my work.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's true with a lot of people nowadays. I think a lot of people. I mean, it's hard. We have difficult economic landscape that we're dealing with.
Yeah.
The country does not value us, you know, but they never have. So it's not like new.
Totally,
it's just the game is different. The stakes are different, but it's the same game. And I think we have to think more about that
Yeah.
in these early stages of your career, because then you're going to look down the line, you know, 20 years ago I could have done this.
Yeah.
Maybe I would have enjoyed the last 20 years a lot more. Or, I'm happy I'm making what I'm making. But, I mean, there's just some music now where it's like, are you thinking about how this exists in the world?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm glad Instagram is helping you out, but, like, was it worth it? You know, it's just, like, a little bit of that kind of, like, what are you actually doing?
I think it's, like, also when the integrity of the art suffers.
Right.
And that is, like, subjective, perhaps?
Yeah.
Is that subjective?
Well,
I don't know.
I think some of these people...
I think music is subjective.
Yeah, I think some of these
Yeah.
people might think that they're engaging in some super meaningful thing, but when they spend all their time focusing on the optics of it and the perception,
yeah.
it's like...
You're bound to make something that's not as
Yeah,
deep.
Yeah.
kitsch. Is
Yeah.
that the word?
Yeah.
Could be.
It's formulaic, you know.
Yeah.
It's formulaic.
Yeah.